This may or may not be a familiar story to you. If you're relatively new to the Bible, you can go ahead and open up to Genesis 27 if you want. If you're relatively new to the Bible, or the Bible's relatively new to you, then this might be kind of a strange story. Even if you're not, I've read the story multiple times, and it only gets more strange the more I read it. But it's really a story in which the future, there's uncertainty about the future, and so different family members are clamoring to make their stake on the future, basically. So this is the story of the chronicles of Jacob and Esau. We've been in the book of Genesis look at that! Look at the sisters. That's awesome. You see, you don't even got to go outside. Now you got the view right there. We've been in the book of Genesis for the last, since September, and we've been making our way through, and we've had a host of people teaching, and we're up to the point where we've had Abraham has received the promise of God, and God declared to him that he's going to start a new nation through him, through which he's going to save the whole world. And so we have Abraham, and then Abraham has a son Isaac, and now Isaac has a wife named Rebekah. And Corey, actually, when he spoke a couple weeks ago, he read a little bit of this, but in chapter 25, we see Isaac and Rebekah have kids, okay? And so chapter 25, verse 21, it goes like this. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, now this is where the future is pronounced before her. This is kind of a prophecy. Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Okay. When when time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, which Esau means red. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Okay, so one of the things that is important when we seek to interpret the Bible is that especially in narrative texts where the author's telling a story, is when the author inserts commentary rather than just, this is what happened. A lot of it's, this is what happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. But here we see, at the end of what I just read, a little bit of not just what happened, but how people felt. Okay? So it records some things. So Esau was skillful, it's describing him. Jacob was quiet, he stayed among the tents. It's describing things that they did, what happened. Isaac loved Esau, Rebekah loved Jacob. So really that's a little bit of a hint. Okay, this is probably going to come back. Why would the author include that the parents show some favoritism here? Okay, so this is going to come back. Now, then we see the story of Esau comes home one day. He's famished. He's out hunting in the woods. He comes home, and Jacob is cooking. His little brother's cooking, and he smells the stew, and he's so hungry. He says, "Give me some of that stew." And Jacob says to him, "Sell me your birthright." And he says, "Well, if I don't have any stew, I'm going to die. What good's my birthright to me?" So they basically make this agreement, and he gives him his birthright. Now, the significance of a birthright, because we're going to deal with two different things here. We're going to deal with the birthright and the blessing. This story is about a birthright, the specific one, where what this would be is Esau giving up his extra share of the inheritance. The way that inheritance was broken up, like material possessions were broken up in the ancient Near East, or at least in their culture, was that you had the inheritance would be divided amongst the number of kids plus one extra. So if there's 2 kids, the inheritance would be divided up 3 ways, and the third share would go to the eldest child. So if Isaac dies before this story, before this little event, then Esau gets 2 shares, double the inheritance, and then Jacob gets a single amount. Okay? So what this is Jacob saying, no, give me your extra share. Give me your birthright. So that he would then get a double share of his inheritance. So that's material possessions. Okay? So then it says this. So Esau, at the very end, verse 34, so Esau despised his birthright. Interesting. So then chapter 26 is a story of there being a famine. Isaac making his way down to Egypt. God stopping him on his way and saying, no, I want you to stay here. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to give you this whole land. He's going to reiterate the promise he made to Abraham that we've read about. God just keeps making these promises and more promises and more promises that he's going to save the world, that he's going to give them this entire land that's already occupied by all these other people. And he reiterates that with Isaac. And Isaac, he again does what Abraham does. He lies about his wife, saying she's his sister, and he ends up making people mad. But he ends up anything he plants, it grows, and it goes great. He ends up having there's a little tussle over some wells that his father Abraham dug, but ultimately at the end of that, he's settled in a land where he's got water, he's got food, he's basically got everything he needs, and his kids have grown up. Now, then this is what happens at the end of chapter 26, okay? Right before the story we're going to talk about today. When Esau, the older son, was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri, the Hittite. I don't know how to pronounce that. Also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite, okay? And then it adds this, the author keeps inserting this commentary. They were a source of grief for his parents, Isaac and Rebekah. Okay? They were a source of grief. Okay, then we get into chapter 27. And this is the story we're going to focus on today. When Isaac was old, so I'm just going to read it to start. And it's pretty long, so I might break it up here. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death." So Isaac's probably at least 100 at this point. Somewhere after that. He said, "I'm now old. Now then, get your weapons, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt for some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah, Mom's listening in on this. Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully to what I tell you." This is Rebekah talking to Jacob. "Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat so he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm a man with smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. Okay, so let's recap here. This is what happened so far. Isaac is getting pretty old. He doesn't know how much longer he's going to live. He's not on his deathbed yet, because the weird thing is he lives another, depending on when exactly this happened, he lives another 60 to 80 years after this event, which I never realized. But he says, I don't know. So he's going to try to get his house in order. So he goes to his favorite son, his oldest son, which this only makes sense. This is his oldest son, so who he's going to bless. The significance of this blessing is different than material blessing. This is, he's not giving like land or cattle or anything like that. This is basically, I'm passing off the torch to you. You're going to lead our family. You're going to lead our family in the next generation. That's what this blessing is. So that's the difference between the birthright that we talked about earlier in the story and the blessing now. Jacob's already got the birthright. He's already got the stuff. Now, this is a question of him getting his dad's favor. Okay? So what happens is, he says, Esau, go get me a meal. I want to eat with you. And it says he loved. Earlier it says he loved the taste of game. So he instructs Esau to go. So Esau goes out in the woods. He goes to kill something and drag it home. Well, Rebecca overhears this. This is why this is so soap opera-ish. It's like, it's so weird. So she kind of hears, she's in the kitchen, rolling dough or whatever, and she overhears this, and she's like, oh no. Now, remember what God told her, okay? When they were born, or when they're like punching each other in her stomach, and she goes to inquire of the Lord. And it says, the Lord said to her, this is chapter 25, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. I wonder if this is something that she kept to herself. I mean, Isaac he seems like a pretty clueless guy throughout the story. And we'll see more of that later. But the older will serve the younger. She remembers that, I think. And so when this happens, she realizes that if Isaac gives his blessing to Esau, then the older will not serve the younger. The oracle given to her by God will not come true. So she decides to take matters into her own hands. He says, oh, no, you didn't. And she says, okay, Jacob, come here. Your dad is going to give... He's going to pass the torch off to Esau. So we got to do something about this. Go get me some goats, and I'll cook them, and we'll make some food for Isaac, and you can pretend to be Esau, because Isaac can't see, so he won't be able to tell. He goes, dude, I've got like 2 chesties. He's full of hair all over. How am I gonna like compare that? That's not gonna work, okay? But she's like, okay, don't worry about it. So she gets some of Esau's clothes. She goes to his room, takes them out of his closet. She puts some goat skin over his wrists, over his arms, to disguise him, okay? And then makes the food, okay? So then, and this is another thing. Jacob says, well, if he catches me, then I'm going to be cursed. And she says, let the curse fall on me. Okay, so she's like, I'll take the blame for this. Now, see, this is something that every time my recollection of the story before preparing for today, I always thought Jacob is like the bad guy. He's like this evil, conniving, his name even means, or sounds like the Hebrew word for deception. Like that's what he's like known as. But he's just along for the ride. Like Rebecca is really the one who is making this happen. Okay? And he's not against it, so he's not innocent, but he totally is not like, it's not even his idea. Like he was just fine being who he was, and she came up with this. So he goes in. Verse 14, so he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. He went to his father and said, "My father." I wonder if he put on like a deeper voice. my father. "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." Okay, so we have two tests so far. The hearing test. Hearing test is not Esau. Fail. The touch test, the feel, that sense, is Esau. A+. Okay? So we got two. The voice, verse 23. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he blessed him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine, he drank. Then his father said to him, "Come here, my son, kiss me." So we've got three tests. We've got the hearing test, fail. We've got the touch test, succeed. We've got the taste test. He tastes the food, succeed. He says, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him. And then we've got the smell test. So we've got the hearing test, the touch test, the taste test, and the smell test. 3 out of 4, 75%. It's a C. Apparently that's good enough. And he says, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field, because he's smelling Esau's clothes, okay? Is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of the earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. So I imagine Jacob walks out, and he walks out, and Esau is there, and Esau's already like getting the food ready, and he's like, "Oh, hey Jacob, how's it going?" You know, like he has no idea what just happened, and Jacob's like, "Good, it's going good. I'm gonna go now." and he's like, "Oh, okay." So he's making the food. He's all excited. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Have you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine, so what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. Okay, so here's something that's a little dramatically different about this culture than would be ours. So Jacob comes in, he gets the blessing, but the whole time, this is what my wife and I were talking last night. She's like, well, he thinks it's Esau, so wouldn't Esau still get it? And basically the way to think of it, because that's, if he receives it deceitfully, then wouldn't that nullify the agreement? But the way to think of it is, it's like, think of it as if he had put a contract in front of Isaac and asked Isaac to sign it. Not knowing that Isaac can't see that Jacob's name is on it. He signs it. So basically, this is the equivalent of Jacob having a piece of paper with his dad's signature on it, attributing everything to him. That's basically what this is. So it's no takesy-backsies here. Okay. So in this world, when you said it, you couldn't unsay it again. You can be like, oh, no, I never signed anything. No, you can't get me. That's something that we're used to. When you get it in writing, that's when it's official. This is not the case. And so that's why Esau is just begging, like, he's not even trying to say, can you give me can you take it away from Jacob? He knows that can't happen. He's just saying, do you have anything else? Like, did you leave anything out of what you gave to him that I can have? Like, he's just so desperate. And then the story continues, and it just gets even more soap opera-y-ish. Verse 41, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him, understandably so. And then he said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob. So a little bit more than a grudge, kind of wants to kill him. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, your brother Esau is consoling himself with the thought of killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Okay, so here's the thing. I also never realized about the story. I don't think it ever really comes out to Isaac that Rebekah was behind this. Like, he thinks this was all Jacob. Because this is what happens next. So she tells Jacob, Esau wants to kill you, you need to flee. But then she says to Isaac in the very next verse, then Rebekah said to Isaac, remember what the Hittite wives of Esau, they were a pain in the neck for Rebekah and Isaac? She brings that up. I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. So then, in the following verses, Isaac basically tells Jacob, he blesses him again, and he tells him, don't get a Canaanite wife like Esau has. And instead, so Rebekah, instead of just her secretly sending Jacob away, instead she tells Isaac, yeah, we need to send Jacob away so that he can find a wife from a different that's not a Canaanite. She doesn't tell Isaac her real reasons for sending him away. So she seems to just be like I don't want to be around this lady. I mean, so he says, may God take a wife for yourself from there, from Laban, from your uncle, from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your number until you become a community of peoples. May He give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now live as an alien, the land God gave to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who is the mother of Jacob and Esau. And then it says Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to find a wife that wasn't a Canaanite, and Jacob obeyed him. And then Esau realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. Verse 8. So he went to Ishmael, his uncle, and married a couple women. Or he married one. He married one more, in addition to the wives he already had. So it's like, we got 4 characters in the story. You got Isaac, we'll pair them, Isaac and Esau, and you've got Rebekah and Jacob. And and it seems to me that what I want to make the story about is what happens when we don't trust God. Because there's not, I mean, God, the thing that's interesting about this chapter in particular is that God he's only mentioned when Rebekah tells Jacob that Isaac is going to bless Esau, and she says he's going to do it in the presence of the Lord. That's the only time really that God comes up. God isn't actively said to have done anything in this text. So all we have is these characters and their flawed thinking. Rebekah and Jacob with their agenda, and really Jacob stealing the blessing from Esau that Isaac meant to give, and Esau then turning, and he's already married Canaanite women, and that's already causing a rift between him and his parents, and then he wants to go and kill his brother, so he has to flee, but then Isaac's kind of like, oh, the whole time. It seems like he doesn't really know what's going on. He's just basically following God. He's following everything what he knows. So I'm thinking, well, maybe there doesn't seem to be much trust in God here. Maybe this is a lesson about the fact that we need to trust God, and this is what happens when we don't. But then, as I was thinking about that, I couldn't help but think about how this story turns out. Jacob steals his father's blessing. He's totally deceitful and deceptive, and he's the one through whom Abraham's line goes. So he gets, like, God's plan to save the world goes through Jacob, but Jacob didn't trust God, and Jacob didn't follow God, at least in this instance. Him receiving this, basically becoming one of the patriarchs along with Isaac and Abraham, was a total farce. He's totally deceptive, but God blesses that. So then I was thinking, well, then that's not a very good lesson. Like if you're gonna say, this is the consequences of not trusting God. He's not trusting God, and he gets rewarded for it. Okay, plan B. Okay, so then I was thinking, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like I'm trying to pull like a discernible, like, moral lesson out of this, and this family doesn't communicate at all. Like, this guy gets married, and then after his brother gets sent to get married, then he's like, oh, you don't like my wives? He's like surprised, like. And then Rebekah's hiding this whole plan from her husband, like, oh yeah, he should go get another wife. Like, he should get a wife from somewhere else, when really she's just trying to get him out so he doesn't get killed. So there's like these two weird things that I see that don't let me just make this nice, simple moral lesson, teach this, where I can't really bring a nice moral lesson about this. And the first one really is the question, why did God let this deception happen? Like, because God's abundantly clear, he's increasingly clear in the story of Abraham. You remember, Abraham has Isaac and he has Ishmael, and he has Ishmael first, and so then they're thinking, okay, well, Sarah can't have kids, so maybe Ishmael's having kids through Hagar is the way to do it, and God basically keeps saying no, and then he reiterates as soon as there's when Isaac is born, there's some tension, and God says it's through Isaac. He appears to Abraham, it's through Isaac that your line will be reckoned. But God doesn't say anything like that in this. He could have gone to Isaac and been like, okay, you can't see, this might be kind of difficult for you, let me help you out. I want you to bless Jacob instead of Esau. But he doesn't do that. God lets it happen. So that's weird. Other weird thing is that, as I already mentioned, the deception, like, it fits into God's plan. I would think of what Jacob and Rebekah did as sin. Like, they're lying, they're cheating, like, stealing, basically. That's what it's tantamount to. This is fraud. But then it's like, it's God's plan. So then we have to wrestle with the question, does God use sin in his plan? Because apparently this is part of his plan. And he doesn't do anything to change it. He doesn't do anything to stop it, nullify it. Nope, that's not fair. Let's redo this. He just lets it happen. And then he uses it. See, this is different, very different from my preconceived notions about God that I have really grown up with, where God has absolutely nothing to do with sin. There's a chasm between God and sin. He can't even look on it. But when you see the messiness, the soap opera that the book of Genesis is, Jesus comes out of this deception and fraud. Okay, so I think we really have to. We really have to establish, though, is this actually God's plan? Because there's two ways to think of, like the Bible describes, and that's where I want to really defend the Bible. I'm very quick to defend the Bible. I want to say there's a difference between what the Bible describes and what the Bible prescribes. The Bible describes a lot of things that it doesn't prescribe. So there's a bunch of stories in here that you're never going to teach in Sunday school to kids it's not us being instructed, yeah, this is the way to do it. No, it's just it's a description of what happened. And then there's other places where the Bible prescribes things, where God gives instructions and things like that. And so I very quickly want to rush in and say, oh no, God's not evil, he has nothing to do with evil, this is just description. But then you read Malachi 1 and Romans 9. And this is where it gets messy. So if you want to, you can open Romans 9. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if I want to, because this does not make it pretty. This makes it even more messy. So Romans 9, he's talking about God's sovereign choice. And he's really addressing the fact that you have Roman Christians and you have Jewish Christians in Rome. And the Jewish Christians were trying to convince the Romans that they had to become Jews before they could become Christians. Okay? So he's addressing that. And he's basically addressing what is a Jew. What is one of Abraham's descendants? And he brings up this very story. He just so happens to. Verse 10. Not only that, but Rebekah's children had one and the same father, our father Isaac. Yet before the twins were born, or had done anything good or bad, in order that God's purpose in election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger. Just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. That's from Malachi chapter 1. What then shall we say? Is God unjust? It would seem so, yes. And he says, no, not at all. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. It does not therefore depend on man's desire or effort, but on God's mercy. For the scriptures say to Pharaoh, I raised you up for this very purpose, that I might display my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. Therefore God has mercy on whom he wants to have mercy, and he hardens whom he wants to harden. One of you will say to me, then why does God still blame us? For who resists his will? But who are you, O man, to talk back to God? Shall what is formed say to him who formed it, why did you make me like this? Does not the potter have the right to make out of the same lump of clay some pottery for noble purposes and some for common use? What if God, choosing to show his wrath and make his power known, bore with great patience the objects of his wrath prepared for destruction? What if he did this to make the riches of his glory known to the objects of his mercy, whom he prepared in advance for glory, even us, whom he has also called, not only for the Jews, but also from the Gentiles? Can anybody explain that to me? Anybody? You can come right up here if you can. Yeah. So that's what the Bible says. I wish that were simple. But I was like, there's really no way to go around it. And so what we see here is that when I first looked at this passage, I was looking at it like this close with binoculars, like it had anything to do with the morality of these people. Me with the preconceived notion that it's really all about, God's really all about morality. He wants to make us into good people. He wants to make us into upstanding, contributing citizens who keep our lawn mowed and pay our taxes. That's kind of the lens through which I tended to see this passage. But what Paul seems to be saying here is that in the New Testament, as he interprets the story, is that this story is not about what anybody did good or bad. It's ultimately, and even though I don't understand what I just read to you, it's not easy. Ultimately, God wants to show mercy. And so it's almost as if he is silent during the story because he just wants to set these people up to receive mercy from him. And I love the way Paul puts it. He doesn't say like he's not putting out tulip like this Calvinistic doctrine. He's saying, what if God did this? What if God was like this? That's how he phrases his question. What if everything in the story had to do with not them succeeding or proving themselves to each other or to him, that Jacob's good enough, no, Esau's good enough? What if it has nothing to do with that? What if it's only about God giving abundant mercy to everyone? That's the only thing that makes sense to me, and that doesn't even really. Ultimately, I don't want to give it away. Really, Bob Campbell was supposed to be before you today. He lives in Culver. He was going to teach today, so he's snowed in there. His driveway is a mess. But he's going to teach in a couple weeks, and he's going to give you kind of the resolution of the relationship between Jacob